Hello and welcome, fellow digital soldiers, to True Reporting. It is the 23rd of October, and on today's podcast, we have three great articles for you today. The first one coming at us from the activistpost.com. Only cowards and sadists support the persecution of Assange. And I've been talking about this for the past couple of days. We've been seeing footage of him being carted around in a meat wagon, just caged like an animal. This man was the reason of my awakening, and for so many other millions of people out there. I hope that he is extradited to America and then Trump will pardon him, my friends. He does not deserve this kind of treatment. And also coming from Zero Hedge, will the Democratic Party exist after the 2020 election? My guess is no, and here is why. Coming at us from explainlife.com, Bill Barr signs the order. The entire Democratic organization hauled into court. And this article actually breaks down many big players that will be pulled into court. And also, you know about his investigation into the Clinton probe. My friends, I think we are making a turn, which is fantastic. But before we get into today's podcast, my friends, would you please welcome my sponsor, Noble Gold. Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about my sponsor, Noble Gold, and what they're offering for the month of October. As you can see, this beautiful Commander-in-Chief coin, with Trump having his hand over his heart with the American flag in the background on one side, and on the reverse side, his promise to America. This can be yours, guys, by going to TrumpCoin2020.com and typing in the promo code TRUreporting for $5 off today. So remember, go to TrumpCoin2020.com and type in the promo code TRUreporting for $5 off. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the podcast. All right, guys, it's good to have you aboard. Before we get into today's podcast, would you please go ahead and subscribe to my backup channel, True Reporting 2.0. Just go into the search bar on YouTube, type in True Reporting 2.0, and subscribe. Secondly, would you please go ahead and click the notification bell so when I post to this channel, you'll be the first to know. And finally, please click the like button. The more likes that this video receives, the more times it is recommended to other viewers, thus more eyes on the truth. And with that being said, my friends, let's go ahead and hop into it. This is True Reporting. So again, the title to this article is Only Cowards and Sadists Support the Persecution of Julian Assange. Former British Ambassador Craig Murray has published a very disturbing account of Julian Assange's court appearance yesterday, which I recommend reading in full. There have been many reports published about Assange's case management hearing, but the combination of Murray's prior experience with torture victims, his familiarity with British courts, his friendship with Assange, and his lack of reverence for Western power structures allowed for a much more penetrating insight into what happened than anyone else has been able to provide so far. Here's a small excerpt. Before I get on to the blatant lack of fair process, the first thing I must note was Julian's condition. I was badly shocked by just how much weight my friend has lost, by the speed his hair has receded, and by the appearance of premature and vastly accelerated aging. He is pronounced limp. I have never seen this before. Since his arrest, he has lost over 15 kilograms in weight, but his physical appearance was not as shocking as his mental deterioration. When asked to give his name and date of birth, he struggled visibly over several seconds to recall both. I will come to the important content of his statement at the end of the proceedings in due course, but his difficulty in making it was very evident. It was a real struggle for him to articulate the words and focus his train of thought. Until yesterday, I had always been quietly skeptical of those who claimed that Julian's treatment amounted to torture, even of Nils Melzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on torture. A skeptical of those who suggested he may be subjected to debilitating drug treatments, but having attended the trials in Uzbekistan of several victims of extreme torture and having worked with survivors from Sierra Leone and elsewhere, I could tell you that yesterday changed my mind entirely, and Julian exhibited exactly the symptoms of a torture victim, brought blinking into the light, particularly in terms of disorientation, confusion, and the real struggle to assert free will through the fog of learned helplessness. Murray reports that there were no fewer than 5 representatives of the U.S. government in the Westminster Magistrates Court that day, and that they were seated behind the British prosecutors and essentially giving them orders. The judge, Vanessa Barrister, reportedly behaved coldly and snarkily toward the defense, smirking and refusing their requests without explanation, while behaving warmly and receptively toward the prosecution. Assange's extradition hearing will commence without delay on February of next year, despite the case violating the 2003 U.S.-UK extradition treaty, and despite new evidence emerging of CIA-tied espionage on Assange and his lawyers while he was at the Ecuadorian embassy. It will commence in a tiny Belmarsh courtroom with almost no room for public to provide scrutiny, without Assange's defense having adequate time to prepare. Assange's lawyer, Mark Summers, told the court that the case was, in quote, a political attempt by the United States, in quote, to signal to journalists the consequence of publishing information. And of course, he's right. Nobody sincerely believes that a 175-year sentence that Assange is looking at if he is successfully extradited to the U.S. by Trump administration is reasonable punishment for publishing activities which the Obama administration had previously declined to prosecute, based on the exact same evidence, citing concern for the damage the precedent would do to press freedoms. These charges have nothing to do with justice, and they aren't meant to be merely punitive. They're made to serve as a deterrent to journalists anywhere in the world who might otherwise see fit it published inconvenient facts about the U.S. government. This is obvious. It is obvious that the U.S. government is destroying Assange to signal to journalists the consequences of publishing information. It is therefore also obvious that any journalist who fails to use whatever platform they have to speak out against Assange's persecutions has no intention of ever publishing anything that the U.S. government doesn't want published. Their silence on or support for what is being done to this man can and should be taken as an admission that they are nothing other than state propagandists, sycophants, and cowards. Cowardice is driving public support for Assange's persecution. Cowardice and sadism. Even in every single bogus smear against him were true, from the lies about feces on embassy walls to the still evidence-free allegation of Trump-Russia collusion. Even if every single one of those ridiculous fantasies were true, his punishment to date would be more than enough. I mean, exactly how much torture is appropriate because your preferred candidate wasn't the one who was elected? How weird is it that such entitled sadism goes unquestioned? To continue to call for more is to reveal your sick fetish, whether you're one of the powerful people he pissed off or just another mindless repeater in the comment section. Enough. You've had your pound of flesh. We are watching a great tragedy unfold in a fractal-like way, from the zoomed-out meta-tragedy of the worldwide death blow to press freedom, drilled down to the personal tragedy of this death blow to a man called Julian Assange. His once encyclopedic brain can now barely remember his own birthday. This guts me. There are no other minds on earth that understand the power dynamics of invisible imperialism and the Orwellian dangers humanity now faces as we hurtle towards an AI-dominated information landscape, as well as his did. That mind has been purposely destroyed. We must never forget that. It's been a tough day. My heart has been hurting and my sighs have been long. The only brightness I can see through the bleakness is the quandary that appears to be emerging for these nationless plutocrats who are pulling the strings. The more that they get their way, the more obvious their actions must necessarily be, because the thing they are attempting to do is totally abnormal. Yesterday's court proceedings were blatantly farcical. From the curious rulings to the strange sight of U.S. advisors interfering in the UK case about an Australian citizen, down to even the dismissive smirk on the judge's face. None of this is normal. And when things aren't normal, there is a risk that people will notice, and things are going to get stranger as they attempt to pull this off. The only thing keeping people from really seeing what's going on here is a thin layer of narrative management. And the only thing keeping them from acting on their seeing is feeling like they're alone in their seeing. Keep the pressure up, keep watching, and keep talking about what you're seeing to anyone who will listen. It may very well save Julian's life. My friends, This is really disturbing to me. As I said in the beginning of this video, that Julian Assange was the one who released the Podesta emails. He's the one who brought in all of this information to us, woke up Anons, woke up millions of people, and for him to be treated like this breaks my heart. Continuing forward. Will the Democrat Party exist after the 2020 election from Zero Hedge? It says here, even before Representative Tulsi Gabbard threatened to boycott the October 15th Democrat debate as the DNC usurps the role of voters in the Democratic primacy 2020 election, and with an impeachment inquiry against President Donald Trump on the table, the swamp was stirred and its slimy muck may be about to come to the surface as never before. If so, those revelations are long overdue. It is no secret to the observant that since the 2016 election, the Democratic Party has been in a state of near collapse, the victim of its own hubris. Having lost their moral compass with unsubstantiated Russiagate allegations, those accusations continue as a futile exercise of domestic regime change. Today's Dems are less than a bona fide opposition party, offering zero policy solutions, unrecognizable from the past glories, and not the same political party many of us signed up for many years ago. Instead, the American public is witnessing a frenzied, unscrupulous strategy, desperate in the denial of its demise, confronting its own shadow of corruption, as the Dems have morphed into a branch of the CA, not unlike origins of the East German Stasi government. And my friends, I always say this, that every one of those people that stand for that Democratic nomination are all agents. They're all part of the three-letter agencies. It should not be necessary to say, but in today's hyper-volatile political climate, it is. No American should be labeled as anything other than a loyal American to be deeply disturbed by the Democrat/CA collusion that is currently operating an unprecedented kangaroo court in secret, behind closed doors, thus posing an ominous provocation to what remains of our constitutional republic. As any political savvy, independent thinking American might grasp, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and their entire coterie of sycophants always knew that the Russiagate was a crock of lies. They lied to their willing Democratic rank and file. They lied to the American public. And they continued to lie about their bogus impeachment campaign. It may be that whistleblower Ed Snowden's revelations about the NSA surveillance state was the first inkling for many Americans that there is a big problem with an out-of-control intelligence community until Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer warned that Trump was being really dumb in daring to question Intel's faulty conclusion that Russia hacked the 2016 election. He says here, let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, equal, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Inescapably, Schumer was suggesting that the Congress has no oversight, that there is no accountability, and that the U.S. has lost its democratic roots when a newly elected president does not have the authority to question or publicly disagree with any of the intel agencies. Since 2016 election, there has been a steady drumbeat of U.S. intel's unabashed efforts to undermine and otherwise prevent a newly elected president from governing, which sounds like a clear case of unsubordination, or some might call it treasonous. The intel antipathy does not appear to be rooted in cuts to a favorite social service program, but rather protecting a power, financial, and influence agenda that goes far deeper and more profound than most Americans care to contemplate. Among a plethora of egregious corporate media reactions, no doubt stirred by their intel masters, was a July 2018 summit meeting between Russian President Putin and Trump in Helsinki, emblematic of illegitimate censors from Intel veteran and its cronies. Trump sides with Putin all over U.S. intelligence, CNN. Did Trump commit treason at Putin meeting? Newsweek. And Trump slammed over disgraced, disgusting press conference with Putin? Newsweek. Not one praised Trump for pursuing peace with Russia. And yet, fellow Americans, it is curious to consider that there was no outrage after the 9/11 attacks in 2001 from any member of Congress, President Bush, or the corporate media that the U.S. intelligence community had utterly failed in its mission to keep the American public safe. There was no reckoning. Not one person in authority was held accountable. Not one person who had the responsibility to, and quote, know was fired from any of the intel agencies. Why is that? As a result of the corrupt foundation of the Russiagate allegations, Attorney General Bob Barr and Special Investigator John Durham appear hot on the trail with law enforcement in Italy as they have apparently scared the bejesus out of what little common sense remains among the Democratic hierarchy, as if Barr Durham might be headed for Obama's Oval Office. Barr's earlier comment before the Senate that, in quote, spying did occur and that it is a big deal when an incumbent administration, i.e. the Obama administration, authorizes a counterintelligence operation on an opposing candidate, i.e. Donald Trump, has the Dems in panic-stricken overdrive, and that is what is driving the current impeachment inquiry. With the stark realization that none of the DNC's favorite top-tier candidates has the mojo to go to the distance, the Democrats have now focused on a July 25th phone call between Trump and Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky, in which Trump allegedly, in quote, pressured Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden's relationship with Burisma, the country's largest national gas provider. At issue is any hanky-panky involving Burisma payments to Rosemont Seneca Partners, an equity firm owned by Joe's errant son, Hunter, who served on Burisma's board for a modest $50,000 a month. Zelensky, who defeated the U.S.-endorsed incumbent President Petro Poroshenko in a landslide victory, speaks Russian, was elected to clean up corruption and end the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The war on the Donbass began as a result of the U.S. State Department's role in the overthrow of the democratically elected Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych in 2014. Trump's first priority on July 25th was CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity firm with links to HRC campaign, which was hired by the DNC to investigate Russian hackers of its server. The Dems have reason to be concerned, since it is worth contemplating why the FBI did not legally mandate that the DNC turn its server over to them for an official federal forensic inspection. One can only speculate. Those chickens may be coming home to roost. Days after an anonymous whistleblower, not to be confused with a real whistleblower like Edward Snowden, later identified as a CA analyst with a professional history linked to Joe Biden, publicly released a complaint against Trump. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the initiation of an ambiguous impeachment inquiry campaign with little specificity about the process. The complaint is suspect, since it reads more like a professionally prepared affidavit, and the Dems considered Pelosi's statement as sufficient to initiate a formal process that fails to follow the time-honored path of a full House vote predicating a legitimate impeachment inquiry onto the Judiciary Committee. Of special interest is how the process to date is playing out with the House Intelligence Committee, in a key role conducting what amounts to clandestine meetings, taking depositions and witness statements behind closed doors with a still secret unidentified whistleblower's identity and voice obscured from Republican members of the Intel Committee, and a witness testifying without being formally sworn in, all too early similar to East Germany. The pretense of shielding the thinly veiled CA operative as a whistleblower from public exposure can only be seen as an overly dramatic, transparent performance, as the Dems have never been exhibited any concern about protecting real whistleblowers like Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Bill Binney, Thomas Drake, John Kirikou, Julian Assange, Jeffrey Sterling, and others who were left to fend for themselves as the Obama administration prosecuted more true, authentic whistleblowers than any other administration since the Espionage Act of 1917. As the paradigm takes shift, its toll on the prevailing framework of reality and our decayed political institutions, the FBI and DOJ come to mind as the Inspector General's report is due at the week's end. How much longer does the Democrat Party, which no longer serves a useful public purpose, deserve to exist? My friends, this was well put together by Zero Hedge. I had a great time reading that. A lot of information within that. A good article to show to your normie friends. And finally, Bill Barr signs the order. The entire Democratic organization hauled into court. Attorney General William Barr has arguably been one of the best hires President Trump has made since taking office nearly 3 years ago. And he just proved that again this week when the Department of Justice and FBI coordinated with local police to seize records and gather evidence after several corrupt Democrats were served a subpoena. The FBI seized records from the mayor of Lyons, Illinois, as well as from other prominent businesses. Barr signed off on a federal grand jury subpoena being served to the entire Democratic organization of Lyons Township, headed by Democratic State Senator Stephen Landek. Every single member of the Democrat organization of Lyons, as well as a few Democrat state senators, have been ordered to appear before a grand jury. The documents reveal more about the massive, sprawling federal political corruption around Chicago and Springfield. The Chicago Tribune reports FBI agents who raided the Village Hall in southwest suburban Lyons last month seized a plethora of evidence, including information on a clout-heavy red light camera company, a popular brewery, an embattled video gaming magnate, and construction magnate who owns a huge quarry in town, records show. On the day of September 26th raid, Lyons, who also served with a federal grand jury subpoena demanding wide range of records on a hotel and resort backed by Mayor Christopher Getty, the home security system at Getty's residence, and the entire Democratic organization of Lyons Township, headed by State Senator Stephen Landek. Here's what the criminal probe relates to. Those included ones related to Gold Rush Gaming and Rick Heidner, a major video gambling operator who had been seeking state approval to build a southwest suburban horse track and casino. Governor J.B. Pritzker on Tuesday announced he was scuttling a deal to sell state land for Heidner's so-called Racino in Tinley Park, a move that followed last week's report in Chicago Tribune that Heidner has long-standing business ties to a mob-connecting banking family. Wow. The documents also named SafeSpeed Incorporated, a company that operates lucrative red light cameras at several intersections in the suburb, and indicated that agents hauled away agreements between the town and SafeSpeed traffic studies and notes about SafeSpeed tickets. The Tribune has reported that as chairman of the powerful Senate Transportation Committee, Sandoval intervened on SafeSpeed's behalf in 2015 and 2016, while all collecting tens of thousands of dollars in campaign donations from the company's owner, Nikki Zoller, and affiliates. The FBI has also seized records from Sandoval's office as well as Lyons and McCook pertaining to SafeSpeed founder Omar Mani and his development firm, Presidio Capital, which has built government subsidizing housing in Summit and Cicero. Presidio also did work on the McCook Athletic and Exposition Center, also known as the Max Village Records Show. In other words, this appears to be a massive pay-for-play scheme. Investigators essentially alleging that the Democrat organization of Lyons, as well as few Democratic state senators, approved the state contracts for projects in return for kickbacks. These, in quote, kickbacks, otherwise known as bribes, could be donations to their campaigns or gifts that were given to them. This is certainly a case to keep an eye on, given it involves so many Democrats, and with Barr, the DOJ, and FBI leading the investigation, it's highly possible that several corrupt lawmakers will be charged. Aside from that, this is at least the 7th instance of corrupt Democrats being charged and arrested in recent weeks. Below are a few examples. The former Democratic District Judge Rudy Delgado. FBI agents were seen on Tuesday carrying brown evidence bags as they raided Democrat Illinois State Senator Martin Scandoval's offices as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. Sharika Hawkins, a prominent city clerk for Southfield, Michigan, was arrested and charged this week for allegedly forging records and falsely marketing at least 200 absentee ballots as invalid during the 2018 midterm elections. Ed Buck, who spent decades donating serious money to prominent Democrats such as Obama and the Clintons, was arrested and charged with running a drug house. Fall River Democratic Mayor Haziel Correa was arrested on charges that he conspired to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars from companies seeking to operate marijuana businesses. A Democrat Superior Court judge in Massachusetts was arrested for assault and battery after she attacked her wife inside their home. A Democratic Indiana state representative and firefighter was arrested and charged after impersonating a police officer and trying to buy cocaine while driving under the influence. And remember, guys, a lot of this was taking place in Illinois. We all know how corrupt that state is. Think of Chicago, for God's sakes. My friends, a lot is taking place here. Some very, very good articles here today. So I would be very pleased if you could share this far and wide on all social media. If you found this informative and you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter at TRUreporting. Don't forget to leave a like. You donate to this channel by going to my PayPal, Patreon. We have a P.O. box and TRUreporting merch. All of those links are in the description box below. My friends, again, I will continue to promote this throughout the week. This Friday, I will be interviewing none other than John McAfee. This will probably be my biggest interview to date. Actually, I know it is. So I would greatly appreciate your support in this by sharing it far and wide. Guys, have a wonderful Wednesday. Remember, tonight from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a live call-in show. This has been doing great, and my platform is your platform. It is open forum, so come on over and call in. Guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.